Welcome everybody to the second Innovators showcase of the day. We already had one from and we've got the second one happening right now, and it will go all the way up to 5:35 or so. And we have another set of wonderful innovators who have worked with HITLAB in one capacity or another. And we're proud to have them present at this showcase. But first of all, before we get onto the innovators, I do want to thank the three wonderful panelists who have come to pose questions and listen to the innovators present their tech solutions. We have Howard Rosen, a distinguished thought leader at Forbes Business Council, among other a dozen other jobs that he has. Sahab Aslam, one of the members at Berkeley Angel Network, as well as other positions that she holds, and Georgia Cavanaugh, associate at Steel Sky Ventures. Thank you all for being on the panel today. I just want to do a quick whip round of intros before we get started. So Howard, if you want to take 30 seconds just to tell the audience and the presenters a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sahab.
No, I thought I heard my name. So no, I'm Sahab. I am member of Berkeley Angel Network and HBS New York Alumni Association for the Angels Network as well. And I, in my actual work, I work in pharma, data science. So I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. Thank you, Sahar. Thanks for being on. Howard?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Howard Rosen. Presently, I'm the CEO of Nova Insights. Previous to this, I spent, as most people in health IT, 20 years producing film and television before I came upon the idea about 15 years ago about how to help better engage patients and providers, and invented a communication platform through a company I founded called LifeWire, which I, after 15 years, has said it's time to have some younger insights brought into the company, and I stepped down. I'm still on the board, but set up Nova Insights to really take what I've learned over both careers and applying to help innovators in the health IT space.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Howard. And last but certainly not least, Georgia from Steel Sky Ventures.
Happy to be here today. My name is Georgia Cavanaugh. I'm an associate at Steel Sky Ventures, and we invest in companies that improve access, care, and outcomes in women's health. And we invest across the spectrum of women's healthcare, including medical devices and consumer health, new and innovative delivery models, and health infrastructure that powers better outcomes for women. And we closed our first fund in the spring, so really excited to be here with all of you.
Okay, well, congrats to you guys, Georgia. And as much as the panel has a varied wealth of experience, we have a varied range of different digital health tech solutions who are going to be presenting today. And without further ado, each person has 15 minutes to present their tech solutions, including Q&A. And we're going to be treated, first of all, to TrueTag Technologies and Barry McDonough, the SVP for Business Development, who is going to present for TrueTags that was just on the panel not too long ago. So Barry, I will turn the floor over to you.
Okay, I definitely have to update that picture. It's a little old. Let me see if I could share my screen here. Okay, so hopefully can everybody see my my slides? Okay, so great. So thank you to everybody for taking the time to listen to my quick pitch here today. I'm here to talk to you about TrueTag Technologies. For those of you who were listening earlier on today, one of my colleagues, Jeanette Teig, was talking on a panel about digitized oral medicines. And that is what TrueTag works in, that's the space that TrueTag works in. So our mission at TrueTag is to enable the mass digitization of medicines. We want to turn every dose, every solid dose medicine into a data point. And in making that conversion from a medicine to a smart medicine to a digitized medicine, we hope to bring value to disparate parts of the pharmaceutical value chain and to patients alike. One of our primary goals is to safeguard patients, to ensure that the right patient is taking the right medication at the right time. We also look to improve patient outcomes through the process of improving medical adherence. And finally, we want to reduce healthcare costs through enabling new distribution models and reducing the cost of medical non-adherence in the market. So that's a quick introduction. Our company is several years old. It's headquartered in Emeryville across the bay in San Francisco. We have our manufacturing with a manufacturing facility in Kapolei in Hawaii as well. So in terms of the first question is, well, what is a smart medicine solution? Well, a smart medicine is a traditional medicine that is coupled with two things. The first is a target, and a target is placed directly onto the medicine itself. In the case of a tablet, it's integrated into the medicine via a coating. And in the case of a capsule, it's printed onto the capsule via the normal printing process. And we place these tags directly onto the tablet themselves. That uses the normal operational processes of making a medication, so you don't have to change the operational process in any way. The tags are spectrally encoded microparticles of silicon dioxide. Now, I understand that that's a mouthful. The targets, first of all, silicon dioxide. We chose silicon dioxide for the base material of the targets because it is a material that's classified as GRAS by the FDA, so it's generally recognized as safe. It's already in the vast majority of medicines, and to incorporate it directly into medicine means then, because it's already a material that's there, because it's been placed in the extremity of the tablet, it doesn't impact clinical efficacy, it doesn't impact operations, and it's at a very negligible quantity, about 0.01% of the weight of the tablet or the capsule. It means all you need to do is an annual reportable change. So critically, from a regulatory perspective, to place our tag directly onto a medication, very, very easy. The second component of our solution is a sensor, and this is the sensing device that is able to, essentially it shines a light at our particles. Our particles have been spectrally encoded, so that when that light reflects off those particles, it bounces back into the sensor and then identifies the medication. Our sensor in this case is just a common cell phone, so anything that you would have in your pocket today. And the beauty of that is it means that it's something that, we're targeting mass digitization across the pharmaceutical industry. So it means that anybody with, well, I won't say every cell phone, but 80% of the cell phones in the market is what we're targeting, can engage with their medications, can ensure their medications are what they meant to be, and engage in things like our medical and non-adherence solution as well. So that's what a smart medicine is. It's very easy to apply, very easy to authenticate, and very economic as well. So it's a quick introduction to the solution itself. And we manufacture all of these. We're completely vertically integrated. We manufacture all of the tags or the targets themselves in our manufacturing facility. And you can just see up here, I'm just going to show you a quick view of what it looks like to engage with your medication via our solution. It essentially takes anywhere between 1 to 2 seconds to engage with that. So the light shines on the particles, it comes back into the sensor, it's detected and decoded and registered as an event. So that's the solution. Very quickly, what does this mean? Where's the value then from an industry perspective? First of all, we see this having enormous value from the clinical perspective. Clinical trials, as you may know today, are increasingly becoming decentralized. So when you're understanding the measuring the outcomes of those trials, the health outcomes of the trial, determining whether that product is even, the clinical endpoints, determining whether that patient has even taken that medication is a real struggle in a decentralized environment. So our solution can be used to ensure that the patient has that medication in their hand every day at a given time, and we use that as a proxy for ingestion. And in doing so, you can essentially get a real-time view of how participants in your study are engaging with their medications, the frequency of those, and then you can engage with those patients who are not engaging or who are not taking their medications to encourage that behavior. So that's the first application of our technology in improving the efficacy of clinical trials by monitoring that patient engagement. we can take that engagement then from a clinical environment into a post-launch setting where, as you know, medical non-adherence is a huge issue in the pharmaceutical industry. Only about, on an industry level, about 50% of patients are adherent. So taking that engagement with the patient, combining that with reinforcement, depending on the therapy area that you're looking at. So there's different reinforcement, managing patients through adverse events, and being able to communicate, using that as a tool of communicating with your patients. We've done some preliminary internal studies, and these will be validated this year externally, or we hope will be validated externally, where we've seen up to about 7x less, 7x improved medical patient days missed when the smart medicine solution has been taken versus the traditional. And then lastly, quality and safety. So we all know today the challenges with supply chains, and the fact that anything that can be counterfeit will be counterfeit. And unfortunately, that's the case with medicines today, even in very established supply chains, both. It's happened both in established and non-established economies, and being able for a patient to take that medication, ensure when I take that medication, I know exactly that is an actual product and not a substandard or counterfeit product is incredibly important. So that is just a quick overview, a quick introduction to the technology and the value of the technology. Lastly, just very quickly, very easy to adopt, both operationally and from a regulatory perspective and from an economic perspective. It's only a fraction of a cent per dose, and this is a key advantage over some of the other smart medicine solutions out there today. And then lastly, you can detect it on a cell phone. So very much built for scale and ubiquity in the market. And that's my pitch.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Barry. Yeah, we have a couple of minutes for questions. So if any of the panel have any questions, please fire away.
So Barry, what happens if the patients forget to scan the pill? And what if they fake it, like scan it and put it back in the, the medicine box?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second question last. So we're targeting, the 80% plus of patients who want to take their medication. If someone doesn't want to take their medication, there's nothing you can do, right? There's really nothing you can do. But there's about 75-80% that don't take it just because of behavioral issues, like I forgot, or I forgot to go and get my prescription, and that's what we're targeting. And and no one else in the market will really target anything else. That's what we're really targeting. And then from a second perspective, we, within our app, it depends on the therapy. So the owner of the brand depends what level of communication. We have just base functionality that will message and remind a patient to take that medication until they actually have that scanning event, and we can ensure they've had it in their hand. They can have healthcare HCP interactions via phone. That's all dependent on the brand itself. So our solution, I probably should have mentioned this, is, we are not looking to be a brand in this space. We white label our technology, and we give it to the pharmaceutical brands to integrate into their existing patient support infrastructure. And the same goes for both commercial and in the clinical trial space. I mean, there's fantastically validated systems that are used today in clinical trials. We're not trying to compete with them. We just want to integrate in.
No, Georgia, if you got a question, I've got it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is such an interesting solution. Thank you for walking us through. On that note, I'd love to understand kind of the competitive landscape. What do you see as your kind of differentiators, and where do you sit within that landscape?
Yeah, thanks, Georgia. So there really are only there are two types of smart medicines. One that use light, and others that use radio frequency. And the radio frequency technologies are very expensive. So you're taking something that typically costs on the order of dollars per dose of medicine. And you also then have to wear a particular either lanyard or a patch on your wrist to be able to authenticate, to monitor. Now, they do have the value if they can actually monitor the product inside your body. But that in itself is a bit of a sell to somebody who may not want to have foreign objects going into their body. Our particles are under a cent per unit, and the material itself is in baby formula. It's an excipient that's been used for decades. So that's probably our major differentiation versus those other technologies.
Very quickly, it'd be maybe a little bit of the Simon Cowell here. Why would patients want to use it? You talk about it's a behavioral health issue in terms of they have a certain process they go through. Why would they take the extra step to do this? Aside from that, I think it's very cool, but I may be a particular group. But it's just in terms of those who have to take, especially chronic disease and taking medications all the time, or should be taking medications all the time. Why would they want to take these extra steps? Because if you take one pill, I get it. Generally, you're taking handfuls of pills 3 times a day. So I'm just sort of curious as to how you're addressing that behavioral element to it.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic behavioral question. So same thing that was actually one of our targets within the pharmaceutical industry. They see this as like the safe drive from the insurance companies that provide monitors for your good, ensuring you have good behavior from a driving perspective. So they're looking to incentivize it through adherence, because if you have PBMs, insurance companies, who can see you taking the medication in the way that you're meant to be taking it, you can get reductions on your premiums. That was their specific idea. So that's one. And I think the other is safety. Until you've worked in the industry, you don't realize how prominent falsified and substandard medications are. For the medications I take, I look at them and I see a difference, and I'm very conscious of what could be in there. So, why not is the question from that perspective. But I think primarily it's safety and I guess from an encouraging perspective, encouraging would be reduction in cost.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Barry, and thank you, panel, for your great questions. Really great innovation there, Barry, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you to everybody for listening.
Okay. All right. So moving on swiftly, we're going to bring Sam Korsmo, CEO and President of Call Doctor, on. Sam, if you want to share your screen, I don't know if I've given you permission. I don't think I have. Give me 2 seconds, and you shall have the power. There you go. Okay. All right, Sam, whenever you're ready, you can take the spotlight. Oh, you're on mute, Sam.
Now, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Sam Korsmo, and my product is Call Doctor. Okay. Hold it. So who am I, or who is Call Doctor? First, I want to say that we're a veteran-owned business. We serve hospitals and physicians with great on-call processes. We want to take and simplify, modernize, and innovate these call processes with the results of saving time, money, and most of all, saving lives. What is Call Doctor? Well, first off, if you're aware of hospitals that serve call for their communities and regions that they are in charge of, what we do is we take and centralize and basically manage that through a cloud-hosted platform. And we do something entirely different from all the vendors. We broadcast the call schedule in that anybody and everybody who has access to needing those schedules, they can have that. And what it does, it greatly reduces phone calls, reduces confusion, and it creates a way where a region, a local area, even up to a state area can be tied in. And there's quite a bit of information as to how we save money and create ways of even making money. So by simplifying, we take and we view the schedules anywhere, anytime. We've made a way to easy access and then centralize that call schedule management for every stakeholder within a hospital or a hospital enterprise. By modernizing, we've taken away, credentialing is a huge issue in call and for doctors and nurses. And so we've embedded this process so that nobody can be on a call schedule without them having their credentials being accessed in this process. And what do? We create massive protections against EMTALA. EMTALA is the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. It was created in 1986. And it was a way to ensure that any patient presenting to an ER, an emergency room, could have access to care regardless of their ability to pay. And what that created was hospitals had to maintain call and specialists who could meet those needs. Again, major reductions. We've seen as over 90% of time in calls has been reduced, and creating the status. The innovation aspect of what we're doing is by increasing it across every enterprise. And what that does is it helps in coordination with the scarce labor resources. And what I mean by that is when hospitals begin to have overload, we have a way to what they call divert status. And we have a way where certainly in an enterprise, they can go and look and then see who's credentialed and qualified to serve that. They may need to move over and have a virtual access to call for a different facility if need be. So one of the key things that we came about out of COVID and how we found where the real reach of what call could do. During COVID, we found that in regards to how the hospitals had to meet those needs, the state, and we're in Alaska, by the way, the state had a qualification of saying, well, we can give you this list of people who want to participate in COVID, nurses and doctors, but we can't give you an actual list of who can be on call or be in that aspect unless it's 24 hours. That was the longest confirmed time that they would do that. And the people where my customer is, they said, this is completely unacceptable. We have to be able to schedule out. And so what we did is we came across a way that took the accuracy of call, took the credentialing aspect, and then what we realized was in an all hazard event, or the old term is disaster management, we found a way to creating access 24/7 to any and every participant in any hospital, no matter who it is, and they can be available to meet those all hazard events. And by that, let me show you here. Here's 6 different facilities. Let's say you had a major earthquake. It would take you hours to find out all the various doctors and nurses who would be available in these hospitals. And what we did was by having our platform, if everybody were on the platform, we could actually create we could create a roster of all these people in less than 2 minutes, so that the authorities and the various groups who are addressing this all hazard event, they would then have all the information necessary, how to reach them, how to contact, whatever it needed to be, it would be available in literally less than 2 minutes. And that's anybody who's not on vacation and not on call. So the potential for what Call Doctor has shown here, we've been in existence for over 5 years. And what we have found is with efficiency and compliance, we've actually shown a $7 for every $1 you spend on Call Doctor. We provide that kind of efficiency and compliance savings. Transfers were a big issue, especially up here in Alaska. If you can picture somebody out in the bush, so to speak, and you've got a nurse practitioner who she's got a patient who needs to send, she's not quite sure if they need to get them on the next airplane or what. With Call Doctor, they could actually reach directly with the doctor on call and be able to convey what the issue, or if they need to do something else. And we've actually have incidents where in both ways, because the doctor or the provider out in the smaller regions, when they got in touch with the doctor on call, they were able to do both things, either not send them, which is mainly a $50,000 cost, or get them on the next airplane as fast as possible. And then once you have a patient that's transferred to your facility, what we have found is that the services that you provide for those patients, once they become inpatients, on average around $40 per $1 spent. And then certainly the physician reimbursement comes out somewhere around 35%. Total for every $1 spent, you have a potential of $76 made by Call Doctor. And that's part of the my presentation, and I can be available for questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sam. So we have a couple of minutes for questions from the panel.
Sure.
I'd love to know a little bit about your, I'd love to know about your go-to-market strategy, and then how you also ensure that people are actually, using the solution.
Well, we track all the data, and we can find out what users internally are looking for doctors. We also find out outside of the hospital who's looking for both the doctor and the specialty. And one of the things we've been able to do to disclose to the administration and management of these hospitals is they're starting to find out they're reaching areas that they never thought that they really even had an access or an eye in on how to manage. Burnout is a big thing with physicians. You would think cardiology, certainly in this group of facilities we're at, cardiology is the biggest group, and they had the most access in call as to who's looking for who. But what we found out was there were 3 surgeons who weren't even cardiologists. They were pediatric, general, and orthopedic, and they were actually sought out more when they were on call. And one surgeon was he was close to being burnt out. And had they not seen the numbers, they would not have taken the access. And how much does it cost to bring a new physician in a hospital? Well, this was a key insight to see what they needed to track even better.
So who's your target market for this in particular? Because I'm thinking, obviously, a lot of hospital systems have triage or call center triage or pre-triage systems. So where would you fit into that, and who do you see as your sort of primary target?
Our primary target is hospitals. Every hospital has to serve EMTALA as the federal requirements, and that's both mental and healthcare medical facilities. So what we've done is taken the workflow and created a hospital-centric aspect that cuts all the barriers at what goes on in hospitals. And doctors sometimes they call call a 4-letter word for a reason, but it levels the playing field. We've got a CEO at the big hospital we're at, and she used to have 2 or 3 meetings a month with various practices about the griping about call. We've been in there for 4 years, and she's not had 1 meeting in 3 years. In that 4 years, she hasn't had a meeting in 3 years, and she loves it.
Okay, perfect.
Is your model scalable? Are there any geographic constraint for your model to scale to other hospitals and other locations? And
no, we are cloud hosted. All you need is an internet connection. We have a mobile version for your cell phone. And what we have seen is that doctors and nurses, we had an earthquake up here in 2018. I don't remember if y'all remember that, but we had a 7.0 earthquake up here, and people that were told to go home, they could immediately go into their account, and they were able to access doctors and nurses and people, to find out what was going on. Plus, we have a whole emergency alert system in the background that is texting and emailing. So we provide the cross section for everything to be met by that.
Okay, perfect. We have just a minute or two. If there's no other questions, then we will move on. But Howard, I think you unmuted.
Just very quickly.
Oh,
just very quickly, in terms of, you've shown how you're making revenue for the hospital. What's your revenue model? Is it value based or seat or per seat, or?
It's per user, per seat, per month. And we try to, basically what we want to do is set up, we offer 3 and 5 year contracts. Most of the hospitals have taken on 5-year contracts because there's just such an amount of data, and you have to maintain these records for 7 years. So by digitizing everything in the way we've done, literally we can pull up any kind of report whenever a hospital needs it, and they have availability. So.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Howard, for that last question. Unless Sahab
you.
and Georgie, you have anything else? Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Sam, for
Thank you all very
presenting
much.
the call
Appreciate
doctor. If anybody in the audience has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. And I think Sam, you're going to stick around for a bit longer. If
Yes.
anyone puts any questions in the chat, you can. I'm sure you can answer them. So
Okay.
thanks so much for presenting, and we're going to move on over to Rory from Isla Health. So Rory, I will also grant you permission to share your screen, and if you could turn on your video when you get the chance, and start whenever you're ready.
Everyone see my screen all right?
You can see it great.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Rory Stanton. I'm the founder and CEO of Isla Health, and we are building a virtual first precision health platform for patients living with complex autoimmune diseases. You may not know this, but 1 in 6 Americans is living with an autoimmune condition today. And half of those are not yet currently diagnosed. What's more is that 80% of all these cases are actually amongst women. It's a largely underserved area of the healthcare market, and we aim to tackle it. The problem with autoimmune diseases is that these journeys for patients are extremely fragmented and complex. It can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to get a diagnosis. And I witnessed this firsthand watching my cousin go through it. And then once you are diagnosed, it leads to, again, another multi-year journey of finding out what the best treatments are for you to manage and how to figure out what lifestyle changes you need to make to ultimately put your symptoms under control and reduce the activity of the disease and the flare-ups that result. This is, again, extremely arduous for patients. We also have this other market trend happening with, of course, the specialist shortage that we're seeing. By 2030, we're going to have an over 4,700 shortage of rheumatologists, another 3,300 neurologists, and about 1,500 gastroenterologist shortage within just the next few years, actually. These are some of the costliest areas of healthcare to treat, and we're seeing a huge demand amongst self-funded employers and health plans looking specifically to tackle this area. We believe there's a huge opportunity in this space to take a really complex patient population and ultimately deliver care to them in a virtual environment that's more convenient to the patient and more cost-effective for the payers. $100 billion is spent every single year on just 5 of the 100+ autoimmune diseases. So there is an enormous market opportunity here. And it's certainly something that's not going away with the upcoming recession. And this is an area and a market that's going to only continue to grow. Our approach is to build an integrative clinical team around the patient, helping them coordinate their care amongst the many specialists that are required to treat these systemic diseases. For instance, a rheumatoid arthritis patient might also have comorbid cardiovascular issues and maybe even gastrointestinal issues. And so our goal is to support them with the right specialists that they need to manage their entire care continuum and pair them with a health coach that can support them along their journey. We also have proprietary tech that we've built to provide end-to-end full stack clinical services across remote monitoring, allowing patients to report their patient-reported outcomes and have that sent back to the clinician, easily schedule appointments with a specialist or other care team provider, and finally get personalized health and wellness plans, education, and engage with their patient community. We've also built our own specialty clinical platform to provide the clinical services and deliver specialty workflows as they pertain to these diseases. Our business model relies on initially, we've signed a number of contracts with health plans. And so we're now just in the process of getting through credentialing so that we can bill CPT codes for traditional visit reimbursement and RPM, remote patient monitoring. And we also charge a $15 monthly subscription fee. However, we're on the cusp of quite a large opportunity in the value-based care space. We've actually recently signed an LOI with a large ACO to be able to provide care for their patients. And in that process, looking to really shift our revenue model to be one based on shared savings agreements. Our current unit economics is a monthly PMPM revenue of $150 a month per patient, and which leaves us with about a 50% gross margin. As I mentioned, over the last few months, we've certainly had a kind of an uptick in traction, being named one of the top 50 RPM vendors by Avia, alongside major brands like Livongo and Vivify. We signed that LOI for up to 14,000 patients in Texas, and so we're gearing up the organization to be able to deliver on that contract. We've recently signed contracts with 5 major health plans, getting through credentialing so that our providers are going to be able to bill through for those services. We're acknowledged by the UCSF Rosen and Innovator this year, and we recently had a large benefits broker reach out to partner with us as one of their employer clients, basically called them up to have us be brought into their benefits plan. So seeing a lot of great things in terms of building our pipeline. Over the next 3 to 6 months, we plan to hit a number of different milestones. One of those will be contracting with CMS to get in network with Medicare to further build out our capacity to support and partner with ACOs. That's a core part of our strategy. We already have a second ACO that's indicated they want to bring us on as a preferred virtual specialty provider for them, and they have a national presence. So again, kind of building into that pipeline. Over the next 12 months, we plan to generate clinical outcomes data. We're working on partnering with the autoimmune advocacy organization to do that. We're establishing greater clinical relationships and partnerships with risk-based provider groups. And over the next 18 to 24 months, want to migrate into being able to take risk with those self-funded and risk-bearing entities. We project a balance of revenue over the next 5 years. And we're looking to generate revenue both from our PMPM revenue, but also increase profitability by adding RPM billing capabilities to that. The team is led by a passionate group of digital health builders, folks from health plans and with deep expertise in value-based care, and of course, clinical expertise to help guide our protocol development and management of our clinical organization, which is now about 8 practitioners across all the major specialties. We feel that there's a huge opportunity right now. We've seen what's happened in the last 2 years with the pandemic. The shift to virtual care is going to continue. It's estimated about 20 to 30% of all CMS expenses over the next 10 years are going to be attributed to telemedicine or virtual care delivery. We're also seeing a huge shift in the market from volume to value, and we want to be one of the foremost brands supporting that on the specialty care side of things. And then lastly, of course, we've got greater appetite on the consumer side for better patient experiences and a decreasing number of specialists, which makes it challenging to deliver care at scale, which requires a tech-enabled approach. We're open to having conversations with folks. We're really looking to hit our next milestones and raise money for the next stages of our development. So including channel development, credentialing, networking, and supporting the growth of the clinical practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rory. Really wonderful presentation. And we'll take questions from the panel.
Rory, go ahead. Go ahead, Howard.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, I was just going to say, great presentation in terms of answering a lot of questions. And in a particular very niche area that I'm familiar with. But I was curious about the scaling side of it, because you'll notice just from the presentation, the insinuation was you had some live bodies involved at some point in the process on the telehealth side. And similarly, I was curious, when you talk about the specialized plans, are they created by individuals or they're an automated process using existing guidelines?
It's a combination. So we have some automation built into the platform. One, I would say, benefit to building our own platform is the fact that we get to build in our own specialty workflow automation. We're also leveraging technology and AI-based solutions to help with kind of multi-morbidity disease screenings and personalizing different elements of the care plan. So things like personalized meal plans based on your unique preferences. We also have the capacity to essentially assign different levels of support and different components of patient support based on things like social determinants of health and other lifestyle factors that patients supply us with.
So I think my question is similar, but it's more around the symptom tracker because I've used something similar myself.
Sure.
So how does that work? Is it a patient tracking symptom and then they are trying to debug on their own, or is there a coach, or is it automatic? And like what's behind that?
Yeah, no. So the symptom tracker, really, we wanted to make a robust platform that kind of connected a few different apps, right? So a lot of patients, I met with probably over 200 patients, maybe 300 at this point, when I, had started out kind of on the customer discovery side of this, and engaging with folks to understand what their needs were. Really, it's both for the patient themselves to understand their own insights. There's data and charts and trends basically created from the data. We standardize it in a way such that they can look across a number of factors and see what correlates. And then the coaches, and if they're working with a nutritionist or they're working with psychologists, if they're tracking mental health outcomes, can kind of look at that and use that as a guide in their care plan. Even the specialists can see that information over time. So the goal is to have a data-driven care plan incorporating real-world outcomes data from that. In addition to that, we also have embedded PROs, which are clinically validated for the different specialty areas. So does that answer your question?
No, it does. Thank you.
I love that you're focused on such an underserved area that disproportionately impacts women. Are you able to share any early engagement data? I know the outcomes data is forthcoming.
Yeah, the outcomes data is forthcoming. I mean, we've had, over a few thousand downloads, definitely have people active on the app every single week, adding their data. We've had a really great positive feedback from patients saying that, they would have built this themselves if they weren't so exhausted or basically impacted by their disease. And so I think we've seen a lot of enthusiasm from the market. We actually just hosted I would say actually international virtual conference for autoimmune patients. And we had great feedback from them, both on the app that was downloaded subsequently, and also on the kind of content that we create through our app and through this conference that we served up.
So just a follow up on that. Just to follow up on that question, in terms of engagement, do you have yet done the length of time to stay engaged on using the app? Because historically, people use it greatly for 2 weeks and then it drops off. So just very curious as to what your
so I'd say, I mean, like a lot of app behavior, engagement is definitely higher, I think, earlier in that journey. I'd say now we're comparing data between paid and unpaid users. So the folks that are paying for a subscription and working with a health coach, their engagement significantly higher. And so we've been kind of, as we've launched the clinic and as we've launched this kind of support, this health coach support component to the service, we've seen patients that participate in that are super engaged, which, as we know from research, actually leads to better health outcomes. And so, again, as we're bringing more patients onto the platform, we hope to add to that body of evidence. And we'll be reporting on that later this year, or early next year.
So I saw on your website that you accept insurance, right? And I know there's a freemium version of the app, and then there's you pay the subscription. So what part is insurance reimbursing? Are they reimbursing the $15 subscription? Are they reimbursing the nutrition and the coaching? How does it work with insurance?
Yeah, so the 15 basically is the fee to use the premium versions of the app. We have a number of things. There's a basic plan where anyone can of course, used to symptom track. I'll always keep that free. I believe that that's a resource for the community. That will always be open and accessible. There are some premium features within that paid subscription, and that partners you with one of our health coaches who's also helped support in care navigation across our specialty network. Where we're working, where we're getting the reimbursement is for those visits with the providers on our care team. Some plans cover nutrition visits, some don't. So we're looking at actually more scalable ways to deliver the nutrition content. We have some of that already in our asynchronous content delivery, but even with the nutritionist kind of doing one-to-many sessions versus the one-to-one. And so as we look at scaling, we've built the technology infrastructure to be able to do that, all embedded within the application itself. And so now we're looking to test that out as a next step.
Just one more question. It's just, so what is the ratio between, you're still early days, the ratio between paid and unpaid at the moment?
Yeah, so I'd say, the bulk of the downloads, of course, have been unpaid. I think as we're working to get in network, we're seeing the in-network has basically been a huge catalyst for our growth, our growth from here on out. So we recently got in network with a major Blues plan, regional Blues plan. We're getting calls from patients every single day. And so now that's starting to click up in terms of the acquisition. We've seen a lot of inbound from that. So in terms of kind of the overall number, I don't have that off the top of my head, but we have a high share of unpaid that have just found us organically. This is all without any real marketing spend at this point. So again, in terms of thinking about what we'd be raising money for, that would support that.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. That brings us up to a perfect 15 minutes for you, Rory. Thank you very much. Well done. And thank you to the panel for your questions. We're going to move on to last, but certainly not least, Marcelo Venegas, MD of Know Now. So Marcelo, when you are ready, you can share your screen if I've allowed you to do so, and you can take it away to take us into the home stretch.
Thanks very much. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay, terrific. So thanks for allowing me to participate today. My company is known as Know Now Health. We've been around for the last 5 years. We were actually a HITLAB breakthrough company 5 years ago. And we started off in the telehealth space, offering STD testing and treatment and prep to patients in the New York area. So our mission is really of social responsibility to offer accessible, compassionate, and culturally sensitive medical care with the use of emergent digital technology. We started off with an app, as I mentioned, that we created with a tech team from India, and had quite a bit of success. And since then, we've been looking at how to, particularly during the COVID pandemic, how to offer care that use technology, but at the same time was able to be accessible, particularly to communities of need. So since then, we've looked at various platforms with really the idea of creating a hybrid brick and mortar model, I would say, that allows patients to be seen and provide treatment and testing if needed through a provider that could be virtual most of the time. So we've used several technologies, including Navier, which we just signed on with, which is pretty much a wearable. And I'll get into that a little bit later. We have an integrated system of patient registration with Athena Health through Frisia. And then finally, we're using Title Care, which is a digital, a virtual way to listen to a person's heart and lungs, as well as an otoscope as well to look inside the ear, inside the oral cavity. So this is just a little bit of a visual showing our testing app, which started 5 years ago. And then we went from Know Now STD to Know Now Health. And our new model, we have 6 brick and mortar clinics. We've opened 4 in Chicago, 1 in New Jersey, and 1 in New York. They're pretty much storefronts with in like busy business districts. We've really worked to create welcoming spaces. We've partnered with a lab company so that we're away from the large Quest or LabCorp, which sometimes can give you a lot of hardship in terms of customer service. We've used our initial proprietary telehealth service app for patients. And again, you know, this idea of a hybrid model where we can make, you know, healthcare accessible to people, particularly in more disadvantaged locations. Our team is all Spanish speaking. We have a very low overhead, and we've been working now with major payers to make sure that we can get reimbursed for our services. This is the competitive landscape where you can see other major organizations that maybe do not delve into social determinants of health like we do, or who do not necessarily make it a hybrid model where it's all really around telehealth. So either you have like organizations like Doctors on Demand or Amwell, where it's all telehealth, or you have more brick and mortar organizations like City Block and One Medical. These are some of our clinics. This is one here in Teaneck in New Jersey. This is another one in Humboldt Park area in Chicago, the Lakeview area in Chicago. And this is one we opened in the Bronx. And this is a place that was particularly keen to me since I trained in the Bronx at Montefiore Hospital. And this area was filled with like injection drug users, paraphernalia that we cleaned out. And actually, even the other stores have mentioned to us how the block has changed since we got there. This is two more in Chicago. And as you can see, it's in English and Spanish. So, you know, our goal is really to use technology to take care of people. And I think we've done a pretty good job of this. This is in the latest AIDS walk here in New York. So our offerings is really transforming the health of our communities where we work, really using this hybrid telehealth model that allows testing and treatment. We try to make it low cost and use quality and evidence-based care. We we have twice a month training with all our providers in terms of really implementing the new technology that we're bringing on board. So far with Navier, we have given out 2 patients scales that we can then connect back to Athena so we can track in terms of weight, patients who are trying to lose weight. And then we also have these Fitbit type devices that they can use so we can keep track of heart rate and any kind of cardiac abnormality. And we also, the latest one is looking at blood pressure screening that we can then get back right into the EMR. So we've really focused on 3 things, which I wanted to mention today: head, heart, and health. And when we say health, we really mean infectious disease health. So really, we've tried to focus on what counts as opposed to just general care or primary care. And so when we look at the top 5 health threats to Americans, people in general have said, you know, chronic disease, in particular heart disease, mental health issues, and then access to care as well. So when we talk about these 3 ideas of head, heart, and health, we started with head, and this is really from a lot of case studies we've done at our sites looking at what is in demand. And so our top 2 kind of like head or health demands have been really anxiety and insomnia. And you know, it's really impressive how many people suffer from anxiety and insomnia in the United States. And so we've put a big push with our medical providers to really get trained, and also at our local sites to get connections with psychiatrists and psychologists. In terms of the heart, we've really looked at not just the use of wearables, but also screening of patients for things like smoking, cholesterol, hemoglobin A1C, hypertension, and then really having a wonderful connection of cardiologists that we can refer to right away. We're pretty much referring everyone over 40 who has the risk factors to see a cardiologist. And the numbers are staggering. You know, 1 in 5 heart attacks are silent, And it is estimated that in the United States, every 36 seconds, somebody has, 43 seconds, everybody has a heart attack. And then last is infectious disease, which is near and dear to me, where we've been doing COVID testing and vaccinations as well, but also now with the new monkeypox risk, we're prone to be able to offer testing soon and also vaccinations. We've been offering Gardasil, which is HPV vaccines as well, and we're doing STD testing and treatment as well as PrEP, which was where we started. PrEP is 1 pill a day to prevent HIV. So we're also delving now into integrated wellness with, including social determinants of health. And so we've been connecting with a lot of alternative medicine providers, from Reiki to acupuncture to reflexology. I've had a long experience working at both the national and international level with a lot of foundations and different companies. And so, last but not least is really our business model. Our startup costs are very low. We're talking about $30K approximately per clinic. We have a very low operating model with mid-level providers that we've really trained, and then looking at remote analytics as well. To date, we've seen 14,000 unique patients. 74% of them have had private insurance, with around a quarter with Medicaid. And private, we include Medicare as well, or managed Medicare. And our new marketing is really head, heart, and health wellness. We're seeing at each site approximately 15 to 20 per day. And we've had no outside investors since we opened. And we're really looking for the right fit. Our financials are pretty much clean, where we're looking at a 400K per clinic revenue or profit at the end of the year. So, the idea really that we're trying to sell here is the idea of hybrid clinics, where we use technology to reach, what are, usually disadvantaged communities, and really offer walk-in care for patients coming in. Our second phase is looking at aggressive marketing around head, heart, and health. And we're trying to be data-driven and, looking at our analytics to provide best care. Our third phase would be looking at value-based care and capitated rate in terms of contracts with managed Medicare as well. And to increase as much use of technology as we can that is practical and accessible. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Marcelo. We have about 2 minutes for questions. If one of the panel wants to go right ahead.
Sure, Howard, congratulations what you've done, Marcelo. It's really quite impressive. But so on the other side, though, and I get a lot of value proposition, but obviously there's other. I was curious why you didn't mention CVS and Walgreens in terms of the things that obviously from experience, MedExpress, as part of the competitive space. Like obviously they don't deal exactly, but I would think that they're would be impinging on your area because of their locations, but nothing else.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We one of our sites, our CVS, is across the street, and I think the competition with their walking centers is, I think our care is much more concierge and much more longitudinal, where we're, I think it's, when we talk about primary care in America, I actually believe it's non-existent. I really think that when we saw the advent of like urgent care coming out and really treating in terms of access to care, particularly in urban environments. And, if you're trying to make an appointment with primary care doctor, it's months out and ahead. And that's why I think urgent care has done so well, which is partially a gimmick, I think, because, a lot of, I'd say 70% of urgent care is really primary care. And, or patients going to the ER. So we've kind of just welcomed all that, what we perceive as competition as well, where I think we just have a much better product that's really, I think, more encompasses much more than what the walk-in that CVS Care does.
Great, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
We have time for just one more question before we have to wrap up. If any of the panel want to pose one more to Marcelo.
Yeah, thank you. Loved your presentation. How are you thinking about sourcing and retaining providers given the widespread provider shortage?
It's really interesting. We have not had a problem. I know there is a shortage out there from, nurses to medical assistants to mid-level providers, but we've retained our providers for the last 3 years, and it's really become like a really great network between providers that know other providers that they've brought on board. And I think, our pay is very good. I think one of our things that we do is create a culture of acceptance and kind of like working with people. And we really have had almost just 2 people leave in the last 3 years. So I think it's really been great.
Okay, thank you, Georgia, for posing that last question, and Marcelo for presenting. That takes us nicely onto the very end of the Innovators Showcase and the last one for the day. Yeah, really wonderful presentations, everybody. We're getting some nice feedback from the chat. So thank you, Barry, Sam, Rory, and Marcelo for coming on to present today. Of course, Sahab from Berkeley, Georgia from Steel Sky Ventures, and Howard, of course, from Forbes Business Council. Can't thank you enough for coming on and both sharing your insights and posing these wonderful questions to these presenters. So we're going to move on to the next panel now, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Please feel free to connect in the general networking room as well to continue the conversation.